Welcome back to the 365 Driven podcast. We've got an exceptional guest today that is one of my mentors that I actually discovered back in 2018 when I attended to a 10X GrowthCon in Vegas. I was actually in the Lewis Howes group. I knew Andy Frisella, and I was there trying to become a speaker. I was taking notes on speaking skills and strategies. And guys, this guy stole the show for me. I mean, we had some exceptional speakers at that lineup. It was probably one of the best speaking events I've ever attended, but this guy stole the show. And I said, if I ever can have the opportunity to learn from this guy, that would be awesome. And here we are. He created the Arete Syndicate, him and Andy Frisella, about 6 months after that event. And man, it just kind of took off. I was the first year signing up, and I've been in there ever since. And this guy, if those of you that are not familiar with Ed Mylett, he's a very, very successful businessman, built a net worth into hundreds of millions. I'm sure he'll hit the B at some point. And he's just out there trying to do the best he can and really improve this world and really instill a lot of confidence and legacy in people. And he's got a great heart, and you're going to hear about that in this episode. So Ed, welcome back to the show, man.
Brother, great to be with you. I've been looking forward to this one. You got a calendar full of stuff, a couple of things you look at, you go, I can't wait to do that one. And this was one of them. So great to be back.
Man, it's been over 200 episodes, it seems like. So I think the original episode you came back in was episode 135, and that was in 2020, April of 2020. So here we are, a couple of years down the road. We both have, learned a few new things, have discovered some things about ourselves and in the world. And this is all pre-COVID stuff that we were talking about back in the last conversation. So, catch us up a little bit, man, because a lot of things have changed for you in the last year, I think.
Yeah, probably the biggest thing that happened was my best friend died. My dad passed away. And, it's not the events of our lives that define us. It's the meaning we attach to it. Right. And I could have decided, look, my dad suffered for 8 years with cancer, chemo, radiation, surgery, proton therapy, cancer, chemo, radiation, new chemo, and then passed. I could take, I could decide that was tragic and terrible and why'd God do this, or I could find the right meaning in it. And when I found that right meaning, I talk about how to do this in the book. I decided I want to write my next book and maybe my last book for a while, called The Power of One More. And then I spent that year really writing this book. And I call it The Ultimate Guide to Success and Happiness. But what it really is like, it's all the stuff I know by the time I'm 51. It's a heavy book. A lot of strategies on your brain, time management, leadership, equanimity, confidence, identity, but it's heavy stuff. It's not like a fluffy book at all. It may even be too heavy. I'm not sure. Because if you want to change, you read this book, you'll have some changes in your life. But so that's what I spent the last year, honoring my dad, lessons I learned from him, lessons I've applied in my own life. And so with that loss, I've kind of dedicated this book to him, and in the hopes that my dad and I together can help millions of people.
It's a powerful story. And I remember watching you go through that. You're very transparent about the things that you were feeling, the emotions you were kind of going through, the struggles, the good days, the bad days. And we all kind of, I think even in yourself, you kind of felt the inevitable was going to happen leading up to that day he passed. But yeah. I also want to give you a lot of acknowledgement, because I remember a message that you had shared right after he had passed about it being, he was at peace and he's actually in a more comfortable place. He's gone on to the next phase of his life, or the energy being that he is. And I just remember you had such a positive outlook on that. But I think there was also, like you said, a lot of months leading up to that, you were kind of prepared for it. So maybe for those of us that maybe haven't lost a parent, what was the real thoughts that were going through your mind leading up to that point and then afterwards?
It's interesting what goes through your mind. I was holding my dad's hand when he passed away. One, I was just reflecting on, I'm in this space of helping people change their lives. I deeply know you can't, because I watched my dad do it. So you start reflecting on your whole life with this person. First 15 years of my life, my dad lived like not good. He was an alcoholic, drug addict, not a good life. And then in the moment of making one decision, one more time, one more try, he completely changed his life. And I watched him live magnificently, better than any human being I've ever known, became my hero. So I'm reflecting on all that stuff, I'm reflecting on him and me. But it's interesting what goes through your mind is like how proud I am of him. But if I'm being really honest with you, one of the things that I hope this doesn't sound creepy, but one of the things that dawns on you when you hold your father's hand as he's passing away is that you're the next one. And maybe that seems odd, but like part of my processing what took place was like Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich. I got it right here. I got my two favorite books other than the Bible, Think and Grow Rich and The Power of One More, my book. And he says in that book that you got to begin with the end in mind for your goals. But really, that's how your life should be. You should begin with the end of your life in mind and work your way back. And that moment crystallized it for me. Like, who do I really want to be? What have I really accomplished? What more is there for me to do? What more memories do I want? What more emotions do I want? What do I know? Am I really making a dent in the world like I think I am? Or maybe I should sit down and really write, here's actually how I think. Here's actually how I do self-confidence. Here's actually how I manage my time. Here's actually how I manage energy. Here's the actual questions I ask myself. Here's the actual part of how I program my reticular activating system in my brain. And so what went through my mind at that time was like my own life, believe it or not, was my life with my dad, how proud I was of him, the lessons I took from it, and that I was next. I don't know if I'm next in a week or in 40 years, but at some point in my life, I'm going to also have one more day and one more hour in my life. And what do I want to be feeling in those times when I get there? And so maybe that's not the answer most people expect, but I think a lot of people were really being honest, it's part of what occurs to everyone when that happens.
So you showed your 2 books that you keep on your desk. I actually keep 2 coins on my desk, and I don't know if you'll be able to see these on the camera, but you know the black one because you guys gave me that one. The other one's Memento Mori. You know, the Stoic type belief that you will die. Remember that you will die someday. And you and I have had this conversation before. I had a near-death experience racing cars 2015, and that's why I do what I do now. And I'm actually going to give a speech in Mexico this week, really related to somewhat around that, is because I am driven by mortality. And like you said, it does sound kind of creepy, man. Let's be real. Like, anybody listen to that, like you're driven by mortality and legacy. And
yeah, but don't you think, Tony, if you don't, you're lying to yourself. We're all heading there.
Yeah.
And to avoid the thought of it is to lie to oneself and not to be honest. And the cool thing about it is we're not there yet. And so the people think all the time, well, people don't have any vision in their life. It's such a lie. You have vision. You want to be happy or sad? You want to be happy. Rich or poor? Rich. You want to help people or not help people? Help people, right? Come on. The question, you want to have confidence or no confidence? You have a vision for your life. The issue is depth perception. You think it's further away than it is, or you think you have forever to do it. Because you have those 2 beliefs, you act in accordance with those beliefs and you constantly keep it that far away from you, and it never happens. What if your entire life so far, you've been wrong? And the truth is, you are one decision away, one meeting away, one relationship, one thought, one emotion, one book, one podcast away from a different life. I'll give you an example, man. This is, you will not believe this. I don't have one major, like the one major one was my dad getting sober. That changed my life. You and I probably wouldn't be talking to that not happen because of all the lessons I learned from my dad in sobriety. But having said that, I'm playing golf about 3 weeks ago. Everyone, my friend, you're gonna believe this. My friend's like, you got to play golf with this guy, similar net worth. He's kind of a fan of yours. He's a member here. You need to meet this guy. I reluctantly do it. I go to the first tee. The guy goes, oh, Ed Mylett, I can't wait for the next 5 hours. I'm going to learn everything you know. And I go, that ain't how it's going to work, brother. I said, I already know everything I know. I want to know about you. You know, the interviewer, the friend in me, you know, I want to talk about myself. And he goes, well, we can just do it here on the first tee. I said, really? He goes, actually, like in 1 minute. I said, okay, I doubt that, but give it to me. He goes, 1986, I loaned a guy $50,000. So did my best friend. A week later, my best friend got cold feet, asked for the 50 grand back. I continued on with the loan. The loan turned into $750 million for me. I went one more time. 86, I loaned the guy 50 grand. It turns into 750 million eventually. I said, who'd you loan this money to? Jeff Bezos. I said, dude, get out of town. You were one decision and one loan, one relationship away from a totally different life. He goes, on steroids, brother. So that's an extreme version, but we've all had that. Maybe it's the relationship you're currently in. It changed your life, making the decision to get into that relationship or ask them out, right? It's a business you started. Mine is more, I don't have one of those, but mine's a series of small ones of one mores that have altered my life. Napoleon Hill says, on the other side of temporary pain, you get introduced to your other self. Most people never meet that person because they're not willing to go through the pain temporarily of getting there.
The golf course story is pretty interesting. And I like this because I know how you are. You are actually one of the best listeners that I've ever met in my life. Even when we do the Arete Syndicate summits and things like that, you always have a crowd of people around you. It's impossible. And I know you're an introvert. It's impossible to not to have this crowd around of people around you, but I watch Human Nature, and you're good at just really focusing in on the person that's speaking. And it's almost like the other people don't even exist, and you're engaging and you're listening, and you always repeat back things that they had said maybe even 10 minutes ago. But so the golf course thing, I remember you talked about that. You said that you don't ever name drop, you don't talk about your money, you don't do any of that, but your goal is to learn who that person is by the time you finish your 18 holes, so that when they see you later on, they say, man, who is that Eddie guy? He's such a nice guy. And
I don't know much about him if they didn't know me. And the thing is that like, I got to tell you, you're a great listener. So you see that in another person. We both know that's another one of, that's really, you're exceptional, right? We both are. And for me, I've made hundreds of millions on limited skills, but the ones I have are pretty pronounced. And one of them is my ability to be present with another human and read them. And where's that come from? I'm the child of an alcoholic. So at 5 years old with 3 little sisters and a mom, I had to be present and read this man who was going to come through the front door, my dad. I was really never a child. I was always a little man. And then when he would come through the front door, man, I would have to read him. Is it sober, Dad? We're going to have dinner and play basketball in the backyard. If it's drunk, Dad, and what am I looking for? How's he walking? I'm 5, bro. How's he walking? Is his tie a little tied wrong? Is his hair messed up? Is he slurring his words? And if that's the dad, sisters need to go upstairs, and I tell mom to go take a shower or a bath. And then the second thing takes over, my communication ability. I'd grab his hand if he was drunk. Daddy, how was your day? I got a 93 on my spelling test. I hit a home run in the game. And I would talk. And here I am, just like Napoleon Hill said, on the other side of temporary pain is this other self. I didn't know that 5-year-old precious little me boy who had to read his father, whether he was drunk or not, was building the skill that would make him hundreds of millions of dollars someday. And so on the other side of all our adversity, all our pain, all our difficulty, all our setbacks, all our failures, is this skill or this gift or this relationship or this decision or this thought that we get introduced to, this other self, if we can get through it. And that's a perfect example, is my ability to listen and be present.
And this is kind of a good segue into a thought that I've been having in recent weeks. Okay. One of the best things that I hear you from stage, and I'll give you even the credit for the first time I've heard this, is when you talk about someday you'll be in heaven and you're meeting God, and God is introducing you to what could be your highest potential. And you hope at some point that person, you recognize that person because it's the same person as you, that you ended up as. Mm-hmm. I love that speech, and it definitely gives you the chills, and anybody hears it will feel the emotional gravity of that speech. But the thing is, I've been thinking about almost the counter to this, okay? And you kind of touched on it. What if the highest potential that we have, even though we're always pursuing the highest potential in our lives, what if the highest potential exists in something we haven't even started yet?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think probably it does. So for me, many different things have been that other thing. And the key question is asking yourself that question about your life. I have a chapter in the book called, One More Question. It's not the events of our lives that define us. It's the meaning we take from the event. And the meaning is the question we ask ourselves about it. I've said this now twice. And so you have to ask yourself if you've reached that highest potential. You said something about reaching for it. A lot of people that listen to your show are parents. And I had a friend last week say to me, boy, you grew up in such a neglected environment, which I really didn't, but, alcohol parent. And I came from divorce, so I was neglected, and I'm not really neglecting my children. And this is a woman I've known 30 years. She said, I'm not neglecting my children. And I said, you should rethink that. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I think you do neglect your children. Because I love you, I'm going to tell you that. She says, why would that be? I said, look, there's obvious types of child neglect like alcohol or drugs or divorce or abuse, or we don't love them enough. I said, the most insidious form of child neglect is a parent who does not pursue their ultimate potential, is a parent who does not pursue their vision and their dreams. You're installing on that child that it's okay to settle. That's neglect. And so this idea that you're asking yourself about, hey, maybe it's something I haven't started yet, is what a real winner does, is they're constantly in pursuit of their potential. They're willing to ask themselves difficult questions. Is it the path I'm on? Is it something else? Do I need to get better at what am I doing? Or is it something altogether different that I've not even tried to do yet? But the pursuit of that potential is the beautiful part about it, because that's how you catch that person. That's how you expand your soul. And if you're a parent, that's how you avoid neglecting, because most things with our kids are caught, not taught. You don't teach them lessons. They catch things from watching you. And if they catch from watching you, it's okay to be average and ordinary, or to settle for emotions that less than you're worthy of, or achievements that are less than you're worthy of, or an expansion of your capacity that's less than you're worthy of. You're neglecting your kids.
Man, that's a tough one to take. And I know that as a parent myself, my son's 22, so he's probably really close to your son's age.
Yes.
I've always just gone out and chased my dreams, and he understands that. He sees me doing crazy things. I mean, I remember when he decided to go do things and get on social media. He was hanging out with his friends, and his friends actually knew who I was. They're like, "Is your dad Tony Watley?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "He's got more Instagram followers than all of us." And I just thought that was hilarious, because I was in my, late. I mean, I'm 49 now. I'll be 50 this year, so it's just funny how he understood that I decided to go start a business. He was there, he watched it, and I grew this thing, and I started the next thing, and I started the public speaking. So I'm always trying to lead by example. Even the people in my group, I'm always trying to lead by example. And guys, it's ugly. It's not always the easy thing that everybody thinks that it's just so easy to go try new things. But
oh, by the way, he caught that from you. One of my favorite parts of my book, I'm bragging on my book constantly because I'm proud of it, but there's a chapter in the book called exactly what you just said, Tony. One more inconvenience.
Oh, wow.
Can you train yourself to do the inconvenient thing? I don't even know what chapter it is, but because I changed the chapter titles, but it's called One More Inconvenience. And the reason that I have that chapter in there is because I wonder what chapter it is. It's interesting. Anyway, it's not really relative, but the One More Inconvenience chapter is important because if you can train yourself to do inconvenient things and pursue the inconvenient, you're going to win. What are most of us programmed to do? Avoid pain. Do the convenient thing. Do the easier thing. I had Phil Heath on my show, who's 7-time Mr. Olympia. That's a lot of Olympias, man. I'm sure Phil's had to do some supplementation that may be a little bit unique and some other stuff, right? But I said to him, "Why do you think you're 7-time Mr. Olympia?" He came up with an answer. I said, "Well, I don't think that's why." And he goes, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "I think you have a totally different relationship with pain and inconvenience than a normal human being. And that you pursue the inconvenient thing in your day. You pursue the inconvenient thing in the gym. You pursue the inconvenient because there's something about you that knows that's what produces a championship. And that's what produces a bigger business, a bigger soul, better speaking career, better entrepreneur, better parent, is to do the inconvenient thing. And what if you could build that muscle up that you're regularly doing the inconvenient thing in your life? You will accomplish things in your life that you never imagined if you'll start to just pursue it. That's why 75 Hard with Andy and so many people has worked for them, because it's inconvenient. It's difficult. We are programmed in this culture now not to do hard things, not to do difficult things. And just by doing that, you become counterculture. You got a chance to pursue dreams most people will never have.
The crazy thing about this, though, is it's easy for you and I to say that because we both have that daredevil gene where we like the adrenaline rush. We put ourselves in peril. We take risks. I don't think that everybody has that within them. They may have it potentially within them, but I just don't think that's the natural cause. Like my wife, she's very safe and cautious about everything. And how do we take the daredevil gene or the willingness to go try new things or make ourselves uncomfortable and instill that into someone that maybe has that less confidence or less ability to go do that?
I think it's a confidence thing because I don't think I naturally have a daredevil thing. You do. But like my dad had this thing. Our parents install this software in us, even if they love us, that's sometimes really doesn't serve us. Their limitations are installed in us, right? My dad, even maybe 1,000 times, Tony, I get off the phone with my dad. "Hey, I got a speech." He goes, "Hey, knock it out of the park. Be careful." What? Like, my 50 years old, my dad had this saying, "Be careful." I'd call him, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "Oh, take a Max to an Angel game. Gonna have a great time with the kid." And he goes, "Oh man, have a great time. Let me know how it goes. Hey, remember, be careful." And so I was programmed as a kid just to be careful. So I'm always walking into environments. What am I worried about? What am I fearful? Who's looking at me weird? It made me insecure. It made me not take risks. Like I had to learn this stuff. I had to learn self-confidence. And in the book, I'm like, all right, I've written about self-confidence before where I've said, hey, listen, people that aren't confident don't keep the promises they make to themselves. That's a fact. And so if you want to build self-confidence, you need to keep the promises you make to yourself. Done. That's not easy to do, but do it. Then as I'm writing the book, I'm like, but that's not what I do. I have a chapter in the book called One More Higher Standard. We don't get our goals all the time in life. Here's the truth. We probably, in general, if we set big goals, we probably get about 20% of our goals in our life in any given year too. We always get our standards. We will always get our standards. So no confidence, don't keep the promise to yourself. Confidence, keep the promise you make yourself. Superhuman potential, keep the promises you make to yourself, plus do one more. That's a higher standard. And so somewhere along the line, I started going, 10 contacts today, I kept the promise. I think I'll do one more. I do 11. 45 minutes on the treadmill, I kept the promise to do it when I didn't used to do that. Then I shifted. Plus one more, I do 46 minutes. 10 reps on the bench, kept the promise. Squeeze out one more. That's 11. Tell my daughter I love her every day. I kept the promise. You know what? I'm going to do it one more time every day. And I started stacking up these one mores. It transformed me. Not confident, superhuman confidence. And by the way, what came with it was humility, because I know it wasn't something I was born with. I earned it and I could lose it. So it's combined with humility. Humility makes you want to grow and expand. In the book, I have a thing called the Holy Trilogy of Building Self-Confidence. And I'm not going to cover it in detail here, but it's faith. Bring your faith, whatever you believe about the universe, God, whatever it is, bring your faith with you into your confidence. Your intentions, which most people give themselves no confidence credit for, their intention to serve. And then third is your associations, who's in your proximity. This trilogy of these three things, plus the higher standard that you keep, you become superhuman self-confident. And I give you the details in the book.
You know, I've actually observed this about you in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been watching you and doing things and admiring the things that you do. I've seen your maturity grow. I've seen, I mean, even there are conversations we've had. You talked about when you first came out and you were making a bigger name for yourself outside of your companies. You hit the social media and you kind of did the check boxes and you started thinking like, I needed to show the muscles and the jets and the fancy cars and the full flex, because you have it. It's all legitimate. But as I started to notice, like even when you started to change the cover art for your podcast, it was just you sitting on a rock, just being you, like nothing material around. And your message actually became more powerful and more emotional and more legacy inspired, rather than I think the financial success thing is more about like fulfillment in life, right? All that's necessary and it's great, but I've seen you transition. And the funny thing about that is I can even look at myself. I mean, I sold my first company, I was 34, became multimillionaire then. And looking back is like, dude, I didn't know half the shit that I know now.
Right.
Like, what if I would have known what I know now, like back then? And man, I hate to say it, but I like to call out the fake flexes and stuff like that, because that was me. And I know anyone that goes back and listens to your original episode, we talked about the Velcro Mercedes, like that was you. Like we've both evolved and improved, but I've started to realize really in the last 2 years through this pandemic that the material stuff and the flexes gets initial attention, but it doesn't, it kind of shows people the money maturity around who they think they are.
I'm with you, bro. By the way, I've been happy and poor, and I've been happy and rich, and I'll take happy and rich every single day of the week. So I want you to be rich, right? Like all day long. My mom just told me last night she needs a new car. I told Christiana right before we started, go get it. I mean, that's cool, right? I'm like, whatever she wants, just go get it. I won't even know what it is or what it costs. That's how insignificant the money thing is to me. I'll have no idea. I'll find out when my mom pulls up to the house. But I appreciate you noticing that, because it is intentional from the standpoint that I think when you're young, or maybe when you just don't have any money and then you get a little bit, you kind of want to overcook it. You kind of want to show everybody. And then when you actually get a bunch of it, you almost want to hide it. It's sort of a weird thing. You're almost embarrassed by it to some extent. And I just know like it didn't fulfill me. It made me very happy. People lie. Money won't make you happy. That's a total lie. You get a new suit, new pair of shoes, new rollie, whatever. You're like, hey, this makes me happy. But then after like a week, it doesn't. It doesn't fulfill you. What fulfills you is what we're doing now, helping other human beings, right? I have a sister who is equally or more successful than me. She's blind. Most people don't know that. I have a blind sister. She was born with diabetes and she lost her vision about 10 years ago. She can't drive. She can see shadows, but she can't drive. My sister is a school teacher, 4th grade Christian school. She makes $38,000 a year. She's at least as successful as me. Why? Success is where your life matches the blueprint you have for it. You come up with a vision for your life and you get it. Whatever that vision is for you. If it's $500 million and you get it. If it's $5 million and you play golf 5 days a week, that's great. If it's like $10 million and you want to spend 4 days a week in your charity that you've created for underprivileged children, that's success. Lack of success is you have a vision for your life and you don't get it. My sister wanted to teach. She takes advantage of her gifts. She's kind. She's gentle. She's patient. She's nurturing. She's short. She's 4'11". She's the same height as her kids. She's perfect for what she does. She's as successful, if not more than me, because she's changing lives every day, and her life matches her blueprint. And so that's why my content's evolved over time. And to be honest with you, it's reflective of who I really am anyway. Mm-hmm. I've never been a look at my baller jet guy. Like I would, even when I started, bro, people that wanted to manage me or be my agents would go, it's so interesting when I meet you, you're nothing like what your social media looks like nothing like it. And I go, well, you know, they told me you got to show your, and many people said, actually, I think your content and your message and the way you deliver it is so powerful that it's being overshadowed by the fact that you post this stuff these other clowns post. Don't do that anymore. And I literally made the change. It's not that I won't show my jet. I do sometimes. Yeah. But it's usually more like, you know, I have this jet so I can make it back to my daughter's volleyball game.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you really do a good job of highlighting what truly matters to you. And, you know, I think that if you're anyone who wants to know about Ed that hasn't, I mean, we all know familiar wise, but if you aren't familiar with Ed, go follow him on Instagram and just watch his stories. The stories is his real life. That's you'll see hints of the success and things like that, but it's your dogs, Daisy and Lily. It's the family. It's the different vacations or the different things. It's the island that you have. And that's the candid side that is kind of without the polish, but we get to see the golf course and things like that. And, you know,
and see me with my goofy ass friends where you see sides of me that you probably would not expect to see from me, I would imagine.
But it makes you,
you might catch me a night or two a year with a little too much tequila in my belly and see me be misbehaving too. That comes out once in a while.
It shows you as the real human, you know. I mean, let's talk about dogs, because I'm going to make this podcast episode a little bit different from all the ones that you've been on. Because if you guys want to learn about business and tactics and all strategies, you're going to find out on a million episodes that Ed's been on. But what do the dogs mean to you, Daisy and Lily, man?
They give me, I have a chapter in the book called equanimity. One more level of equanimity. It's a big old word. That's the second to last chapter. I wrote it there for a reason. And equanimity is peace under duress, calmness under duress. And my little Pomeranians give me that. When I come home, they're just chronically happy to see me and love me. Right before you and I went on, I was reading some notes on the couch. And my little Daisy came up. She's sitting in my lap, kissing me, looking up at me. You know, she wants to be in here. I guarantee you she's right outside the door of my office right now. And they give me equanimity. You know, you look at your dogs, like, they don't need a lot to be happy, do they? Mm-mm. They just want to be with you. They want some attention from you. They want to love on you. They don't care if you got $700 million or $700 in debt. And so my dogs, let me say what it is, man. The more successful you become, I used to say this to John Elway. I used to say, man, you have a big life. This is when I was much younger. Just a big life. You're Stanford alumni, the Denver Bronco alumni. You got car dealerships. You got your family. You got all your friends. You got now you're the GM of the team, and your life's so big. And then I woke up and I had a big life. Just stuff, people, text, emails, Zooms. And when I'm with my dogs, I realize how simple life really is. The simplicity of it, the equanimity of it, the peace of it. And they're kind. They treat me the way every person should treat human beings. And it's not a bad question. It's a really great question. And I really believe they give me some calmness and some peace in a very chaotic and very busy life. They do that for me. And I know it sounds real hokey. I can't believe I'm saying it out loud, but I truly mean this. You can learn a lot about how to be happier and live your life from just watching your dogs. I'm serious. And mine do that for me. So in fact, my face changes when you talk about them. So
yeah,
I think that's what they give me more than anything.
I definitely see that. And you can see it in the video. I mean, some people will go buy the French bulldogs just to get the Instagram views, right? Because that's like the trending dog right now. But you can tell that your dogs are not about the posh and it's not about the celebrity dog. Like it's about the time.
What is funny is that when I first got them, I'm gonna tell you why I got Pomeranians, because they have little poops. I'm like, I ain't cleaning up a bunch of dog crap. I used to tell my wife that I don't even want a dog. Like I'm not cleaning up dog crap all the time. She's like, well, we'll pay somebody to do that. And when I got them, it is funny to watch this kind of buff dude walking down the beach with these two little tiny dogs. And they're both, I do get why people get a kick out of it, because it is an odd, you'd think maybe I have a Rottweiler or something like that. And I got two little 5-pound Pomeranians, but yeah, anyway, I'm glad no one has ever asked me that question. That's cool.
So let's talk about the parenting thing, because I know that as you started to get into owning and partnership with more companies and your schedule's always high demand, you become very efficient at that. But parenting doesn't seem like it's ever been something that you put off as a something on the side. So how, maybe give some idea to listeners, what can they do to become successful and drive themselves, but also be focused on the family?
Always try to be transparent. So I wasn't good at this when my kids were young. So remember, my kids are 18 and 20. So I've had some practice at this now. And what I want to say one thing on the book about parenting. The book's diverse. And the reason it's diverse is I wrote it to be a better parent, but also an entrepreneur, also a coach, also an athlete, also a business icon. So the applications are pretty diverse. But when my kids were little, there were too many times I was not present. Meaning I might have been there, but Christiana will go, do you remember when Bella? And I'm like, no recollection. And she's like, well, you were actually there. I'm like, well, maybe my body was, but my mind was on business. And so I had to start changing. If you show me your schedule, I'm going to give you tactics. If you show me your schedule, I'll show you your priorities in your life. And the way I used to operate is I had all my appointments. And then when there was a gap, I'd put my family in there. Everyone listening to this right now is nodding. That's what you do. And I realized they were the ones getting squeezed. The priority shouldn't have been my business meetings, even though I need to get them done. The priority should have been my family. Just stay with me. So now what I do, the beginning of the week or the beginning of the month, I schedule my family. This is my date night with my wife. This is my time with Bella. This is a round of golf I'm going to play with Max. This is a couple family conversations we've got scheduled. Now the rest of the world goes around them, because that's my priority. So I've changed that. The second thing is I leave my cell phone, mobile, smartphone, whatever we call them now, in my car the first 30 minutes before I come home, when I get home. So I'll even park down the street and make all my calls. I do it almost every day. I'm right down the street from this gate here. But when I walk in the house, the phone stays in the car the first 30 minutes. Why? My kids don't need 9 hours with me when I get home. They have a small attention span too. It's how I make them feel the first 30 minutes. Daddy's home. How was your day? What you do at school? What happened? And I'm bam, 100%, because there's no phone in my possession to tempt me to look at it. Because when I look at that phone and they're talking, it tells them who's ever in this phone is more important than you. And they catch that. And then we wonder why kids go through their lives struggling with confidence, struggling with their self-esteem, because their dad looks at his damn phone 80 times when they're talking to him. That's what I used to do. My kids will never see me look at my phone when they're talking to me again, not the first 30 minutes when I get home. And so I've changed that. I've got some strategic things I do. And then the last thing is I have a whole chapter, 2 chapters in the book on leadership. I sell a dream to my family. I sell a dream. I sell a big old dream, big enough that the dreams of my kids, we're going to do something awesome as a family. We're going to do something great. I have a chapter in the book, Tony, called Become an Impossibility Thinker and a Possibility Achiever. This is parenting 101 for me. You ready? Mm-hmm. Most people operate in their life out of their history and their memory. And what they do at some point is they start operating out of this history and memory. That's their processing cycle. And they repeat the same emotions, same life over and over again with different people in different circumstances. And especially within families, we love history and memory, don't we? Remember when you this, remember grandpa, remember this, remember them, remember. We love it because we share the memories. And we start to really operate out of that. But happy people operate out of their imagination and their dreams, not their history and their memory. So I am constantly and consciously trying to wrestle the narrative in my home away from our past, even though it's prolifically beautiful, and into our imaginations and our dreams. I want my children to leave my home with confidence, with faith, with equanimity, with time management, with leadership. But I want them to leave my home being imagination type people. Dreamers. I don't want them to be people who operate out of their history and their memory, because it's too easy to do and too many people do it.
You know, this is really profound, and it's actually the basis of the way I think as well. And I always have. Looking back my entire life, I've always been thinking about what's coming next. And I've never been afraid of uncertainty. I have a lot of changes in my life. I saw a lot of changes go through my parents' life and unemployment and things like that with my dad when I was young. And I just never had a fear of the unknown. I was willing to go learn something, try something new, go do something crazy. But
Mm.
it goes back to the circle too. We talk about, that thing that you take most people living in the past. Okay.
Mhm.
If you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of people that talk about remember when, you're going to be
Yes.
stuck in that loop. It's like a feedback loop that you can never escape. And you guys, if that's your friends, that's okay in small doses once in a while. It's good to have the old memories and bring it back once in a while. But if that becomes the basis of every conversation and everything you ever do with them, you need to start finding different people that'll surround yourself with that'll talk about not remember when, but imagine when. And
You
that's
got it.
exactly what you
You just,
said.
Tony, you just nailed it. When we're kids, why are we happier? We imagine and we dream, and then the older we get, we start operating out of a different because when we're kids, we have no past, right? We have no memory.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. And I got to tell you, I'm blessed, and I'm blessed that I'm around some of the most influential people in the world in my day-to-day life. People that run, one of the guys runs probably the most important company in the world right now, Apple. I'm around the guy that runs a company called Nike. I'm around the guy that ran the Lakers for a long time. These guys are a lot older than me. One guy used to run Countrywide, and, pretty,
Yeah.
influential folks. It's really difficult. I mean, to even get them to talk about the past, even when you try, they're imagining, man, they're dreaming, and then they operate in the present very well. So they have this frame of reference that's the future, operate in the present. It's almost impossible, even when you try, to get them to reminisce and remember. I'm not saying it's not healthy once in a while to go, wasn't that beautiful, that trip we took to Cabo, or that time you did this? It's okay in a little dose, but people stay there, man. And these are not happy and successful people. They're not happy and successful, or in their imagination and their dreams, living in the present.
Explain the identity relationship to people living in the past. Like, why is it that people really fall back on the past so often?
Well, they've attached their identity to it. They've attached their identity to the past and not their future. So, what I have a whole, probably my most important chapter in this book is on identity, I would say. And so I've told you this before, but your identity is a thermostat setting of your life. It sets the temperature. So if you're a 75-degree person, let's just say financially, of your finance, it could be faith, happiness, spirituality, whatever. But let's just use money. You're 75-degree of money, and you build the skills necessary, and you're at 80, 85, 90, 100 degrees now of financial success. If you don't raise the thermostat setting of your life to go along with those skills and those achievements, you will eventually turn the air conditioner on of your life and cool your finances right back down to what you believe you're worth. You're going to go, no, it was coincidental. The stock market dropped. Crypto tanked. Real estate went the wrong way. Supply chain. The car broke down. Had to make a loan to a family member. Bullshit. Those are all circumstances. You turn the air conditioners on of your life. We do it in our weight. You ever seen someone have a 75-degree fitness identity? They lose 20 pounds. They're living at 95. A year and a half later, you come back. Wow, they put it back on. They put it back on. They turn the air conditioner on in their life. They're never in a great relationship. They found their dream woman. She's amazing. Hey, what happened? It didn't work out, man. We just grew apart. Now you turn the air conditioners on in your life. So this is what identity does to us. And there's a chapter I have in the book called The Matrix. It's chapter 2. It's on your reticular activating system of your brain. If I must say, it's a brilliant chapter because I teach you how to program your RAS. But here's the deal. Your RAS is the filter that reveals to you what you believe to be most true about your identity. So it will literally hide opportunities from you, hide messages, people you should meet, those relationships, those thoughts, those meetings. You don't see them if it's not in your RAS. I just bought a Tesla. I just like what Musk is doing, so I bought a Tesla. Bro, I see freaking Teslas everywhere right now. Everywhere. Blue one, babe, a red one, babe, 3 lanes over, other freeway, go in the other direction. Babe, that is a Tesla Plaid. It's white. She's like, what is wrong with you? How do you see these? I said, I don't know. Why? It's in my matrix now. It's in my RAS. Your RAS finds the things that are most important to you and then slows it down into bullet time, is what they call it in the matrix. And you begin to see things that were there all along that you didn't see. You will hear things. For example, Tony, we could be in an Arete room with 500 people. It's noisy. And at normal auditory level, someone says, Tony. You hear that above all the auditory sounds because it's your name. It's part of your RAS. The key thing in your life, everyone trust me, is to make your ambitions, your goals, your vision, your imagination, the emotions and thoughts you need, the relationships you have to have, the thoughts, your Teslas. And when they become your Teslas, your life changes. And when they don't, your life stays exactly the same, consistent with your identity. And in the book, I teach you how to condition yourself to see and hear those things that are already there.
Man, I love this conversation. I'll tell you that maybe some of the people listening hear the word identity and they think it's a big word and there's a lot of gravity around that. But I want you to give you here's a tangible example that I remember going through in my entire life. Think about if you're working at a job or you have a salary or even an hourly income and you're looking for a pay raise, or maybe you're wanting a promotion. So the $15 an hour person hopes to get the $17 an hour. So they think that their identity is a $17 an hour person because it's dictated by society, what their supervisor tells them they're worth, what the market tells you for that pay job. And moving on to salary, maybe you're making $100,000 a year and you go, hey, if I can get them 110,000, if I can get 115, that'd be amazing. So you have these little bitty goals that don't really motivate you to push a lot harder because it's a 10% goal. And if whether you get it or not, it's not going to really change the outcome of your life at that difference level. So you build this identity around what your friends tell you, what your family has told you, what I've earned more than my parents ever earned. You tell yourself these kind of things, like you said, the circumstances that create your identity. Therefore, you define your worth based on that snapshot in time of where you currently are. And if I look back in my entire life, I was that $4 an hour person. I was that $10 an hour person. I was that $50,000 a year person. And you start to chip away and you realize at some point, and for me, it was probably in around 40 when I started really seeing the bigger picture. And I started realizing that I can create whatever limit I want. Why do I hold myself back to this point? Why does this number even matter? Right?
Yep. And I think having people around you, so like faith, for example, let's say you're an energy-based person. I have a chapter on faith. I'm a Christian, but I'm also very energy-based. I believe in the quantum field. I just happen to think a creator created it. Mm-hmm. So if you really have faith, let's say you're listening, like, yeah, I go to church Sundays, or I go to my mosque or my synagogue. So you have that, or you go to a Bible study. Why is it then when you walk into a business meeting, you're alone? That's not very deep faith. So God's with you, the universe is with you in selective times. So evaluate your faith. 2, intentions. I met Wayne Dyer when I was very young. He told me I was going to change the world. And he said, Ed, you're brilliant. You've got an unbelievable ability to articulate. And he goes, and if you attach your confidence or your worth to your achievements and your ability, you will be chasing your tail all your life. Will you please do me a favor? Because that's not why you're going to change the world, Ed. You're going to change the world because you have magnificently beautiful intentions. You're a really good man. Please promise me you will attach your worth and your identity to your intentions. Bro, right before we started, Daisy's on my lap. I'm like, God, you know that I want to make a difference for people listening to this today. I want to serve them. I want to make a difference. My confidence showing up here today is not in my ability to do it, but in my intentions to do it. Not enough if you give yourself credit for your intent. This is all in the book and a lot more. The Power of One More is the name of the book, by the way. And the third thing is associations. You have to start to have people around you that don't just accept you as you are. The type of people that, you know what, maybe you pick up around the house before they come over. Maybe when you're around them, you're excited to see them, you have a blast, but you're always a little uncomfortable, just a little. These are the people you need in your life to expand you, to push you, to stretch you. I want friends in my life who love and care about me. That's really important. But there's a level equally important. They believe in me. That's different than loving and caring. Belief, and deep belief in a friend, deep belief will help you cause them not to settle for where they currently are, because you know and believe they're capable of more and better. And so belief is a criteria in seeking associations and friends that most people don't look for. They just look for the love and care and trust part. That's baseline. The next level is belief. And that's what I look for.
You know, the big word that intention to me is a big word. Okay. And you talked about it from the positive side, but I also look at the word intention from the observational side. So if I'm watching somebody's words or their actions, I'm trying to discern what their intentions are behind that before I make some kind of assumption. Most people tend to see the action or hear the words, but they have an immediate reaction to that versus looking at the intent. They get angry. Like, let's say, for example, road rage, very common thing. Somebody cuts you off, you're on the horn, you're screaming at your windshield, all these obscenities are coming out, but you're not really looking at the intention of that action that they cut you off. Maybe they're just having a great day. They're singing their favorite song, or maybe they are looking at their phone, or maybe they're just not aware but there's no negative intention behind their action, which created you like this negative shitstorm. So I always try to have that little moment of observation.
So do I. And I've learned something about anger. By the way, I have anger. I've had it more in the past than I do now, but I know what it is. You and I have some mutual friends that are almost perpetually angry. And sometimes don't you watch him? He's like, man, I feel bad for you. You're so angry all the time. Mm-hmm. Anger is the manifestation of fear. Angry people act out because they're afraid. And so when I meet someone angry or someone responds to me angry, or I see that road rage thing, I actually have empathy and sympathy for the person. And by the way, that is something I've evolved to over 50 years. Believe me, the 30-year-old me would respond with more anger and more aggression and more violence. Trust me.
Yeah.
And now I really realize angry people are afraid. That is the number one flip side of anger, is fear. And I really look with them for empathy. And when I respond to them, I try to help them become less afraid. And I guess going to tell you, when you respond in anger, you're afraid. And when you're in a relationship and the two of you get in a fight, you're afraid. They've hurt you. You're afraid they're going to leave. You're afraid they're changing. So you respond in anger, right? All of these things. They're disrespecting me. That's you afraid that they're going to figure out that you're not everything that inside you don't even really believe you are. And so I really have learned my dad was an angry guy when I was young. He wasn't when I got older. He was a very scared man back in those days. And when he became more secure with himself and more secure with his sobriety and more secure with who he was in the world and the type of character he had, he was a lot less angry man because he had a lot less fear.
Yeah, I would say that was my dad too. Vietnam vet, U.S. Marine, working labor jobs after school. And to me, it's like, I had that same reading people thing. Like, I didn't know if it was going to be a good day or bad day when he came in the house. He was definitely not an alcoholic, but he definitely had a short temper. And you just avoided dad for the first hour when he got home because you just had needed time to decompress. And, you know, sometimes you sit at the dinner table and you wonder if it's going to be a good conversation or bad. So when you were talking about that earlier, I was going through that myself. And I think that does make us very much emotionally aware of other people and their nonverbal cues.
That explains you. That explains you a lot right there.
Yeah.
That I get it now.
So going back on the anger thing, he used to have that temper and he used to do the road raging thing. And here's a funny story, because back when I was a kid, Karate Kid was the thing when you and I were a kid, right? You see Daniel-san getting his ass kicked by these bullies, and he goes and learns karate from Mr. Miyagi, and he learns how to fight back. Well, my parents put me in that because I was pretty violent and I was always getting in fights. So they put me in that. And I was thinking I was going to come out like some badass. Like, I'm going to go in and learn how to punch and kick and throw people, and I'm going to be the super badass. And what I learned from martial arts was emotional control.
Equanimity. You learned equanimity.
Emotional control. And if you guys need an example of that, maybe listeners, you watch UFC or boxing, you always see the emotion on the fighter's face when they're entering the ring and they got their entry music blaring and they're just, they're getting all angry and they look like they got this emotion. But as soon as they step in that octagon and the ding dings, you see that emotion just go away. It's just, they're focused on the objective. They're not showing anger and fear and all these different things in the ring. They're very being operators.
They're in their matrix. They get in their matrix state and they slow things down with equanimity. As you know, one of my friends is Michael Chandler, speaking of UFC. And he calls me dad and I call him my son. He has a dad, but I love Michael. But one of the things that's happened to Michael is he's very, very skilled. But when the fight gets in the fray and he's getting clocked like he did against Oliveira, right, or Gaethje, and he speeds things up sometimes and starts to just lose equanimity. And that's when he's been hurt. This last week, when we record this, he had a fight, first round. He was taking a hitting from Ferguson. And he started to speed things up. And then he did exactly what you just said. And he went, wait a minute. I'm going to step back and get equanimity and get into my bullet time and my matrix. And he went to calm under duress. And he had one of the most epic knockouts in the history of the UFC with a leg kick to the cranium that knocked this guy out cold for almost 3 minutes. And here's what's crazy. He never practiced that leg kick. He had never practiced it. It wasn't part of his training for this fight. But because of that way to find that emotional control, which I call equanimity, he then went into matrix zone, bullet time, saw the opening that was there because he's looking for it, and kicked him with a kick that he didn't even practice and knocked the guy out cold. That's the difference. And the UFC is a perfect example.
Yeah. That kick went viral, by the way. It was shared by everybody. And it was right to the face. I mean, it was pretty hard kick.
Epic knockout.
So
epic. But if had he sped things up and didn't have emotional control, he probably loses that fight like he did to Gaethje and Oliveira, and he could have won those 2 fights as well. And that's called growth as a man, and he displayed that in the cage, in the octagon.
It's a great example. It's like even when we're younger and we get in the bar fights and do stupid stuff, it's always the ones that you got to watch that are really calm under that pressure that you really got to pay attention to. It's the ones that are barking the loudest and taking their shirt off and screaming. They're showing fear because they think that's a show of force or, supremacy. But the real operators are the ones that really remain calm. And, if you need examples of that, go look at spy movies like James Bond and stuff. Like James Bond doesn't run around screaming and like, trying to look angry while he's taking people out.
Yep. Well, that's what you just said is what I always tell my son. You watch for the dude who doesn't get riled up. That's the dude you got to worry about. You think about a guy like Brady before a game, let's effing go. Yeah. But then when there's 70,000 people screaming and it's 3rd and 10 and they're down 6 points with a minute to go, everything slows down. He gets very tranquil, very calm. He's reading the defense. He's audibling. Joe Montana, who we brought into the Arete Syndicate, was so good at it that on the final drive to win a Super Bowl, he's in the huddle for the last drive of the game. He's so calm under that duress that he goes to the offensive line, way behind the goalpost, 100 yards away. He goes, "Is that John Candy?" And the guys go, "What?" He goes, "That's the actor John Candy up in the stands." He's looking at that because he's so calm. Think about the difference between that and a rookie quarterback's like, "Oh my gosh, the blitz is coming." Boom, pick 6, right? So that's the whole separator in business, in life, parenting, sports, is to find the emotional control, equanimity in a duress type situation, stressful situation.
Man, stay in the pocket, finish the objective, get the win, right? That's all. I love this, man. We're wrapping up on time, brother. And people, tell them about the book, man, because I know there's a big launch June 1st, Power of One More.
Yeah, go get it. It'll change your life. Look, I wrote a heavy book. It's 19 chapters. It's not puff. It's real heavy tactical stuff. Some chapters will resonate with you more than others, depending whether you're reading it to be a better mother, father, coach, leader, entrepreneur, CEO of a company. A lot of entrepreneurs listen to your stuff. Obviously, that's sort of where I come from. So a lot of it is that leading people, leading yourself, changing your emotions, changing your thinking. And, I've learned now that I'm 51, Tony, how little I know. And I'm curious about life. At 30, I thought I knew everything. At 50, I realized I don't know much. But what I put in this book, I do know. So I call it the ultimate guide to happiness and success. And it's what I know right now about doing it. And I'm proud of it. I'm not going to do another one for a while. It's too hard. It's too much. And the truth is, I need to live another 5 or 8 years so that I have new breakthroughs and new understandings and new technology. I don't want to just write books to write books. And this one right here is, I think you may tell me it's the best book you've ever read to change your life, but we'll see when you read it.
Man, I can't wait to get my copy and look forward to hanging out with you in North Carolina in a couple of weeks for the book launch event. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And man, you got some great speakers out there. So, people, you guys are buying this book. I think they can get virtual access to the event. Maybe name some of the speakers that you got coming for you.
Yeah. If you go to maxoutlive.com and you go there and then you just pre-order my book, the event's free in your living room of your house. And I'll miss people, but I want you to imagine an event that's myself, Andy Frisella, Eric Thomas, Mel Robbins, Maria Menounos, Jenna Kutcher, Rob Dyrdek, Jim Quick, John Gordon, Marie Forleo, Dean Graziosi, and a couple others, and it's completely free as long as you pre-order my book. So go to maxoutlive.com. And if you're listening to this after May 27th, 2022, go get my book and go to thepowerofonemore.com. And there's some resources there that'll enhance the experience of the book. But either way, go get the book right now at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere you can get a book. If you want to come to the event in person, just buy $25 and you can come in person and meet us. And it's only a few hundred people will be there. It's a very intimate gathering in person. But the online access is free if you pre-order the book.
Man, great stuff, Ed. I know we're going to wrap up on time here. Man, just thank you for being a valuable mentor to me, man. I've learned so much over the years, and I look forward to seeing where all these things are going. So yeah, I appreciate your time today and really enjoyed having you back on the show.
Bro, you're a pro. This was as easy as I knew it was going to be because you're the best. So thank you for having me. Honor to be here.